Hello, and welcome back to my channel. It all began building months ago when that familiar face returned to Port Charles, claiming to be Nathan, back from the grave after all this time. Many of us longtime viewers felt that old, familiar rush of emotion. Nathan had always been such a steady, decent presence, a good man who loved Maxie deeply and tried to do right by his family. Yet something felt slightly off from the start, little inconsistencies that nagged at the back of the mind. Then came the jaw-dropping reveal at the end of March. The man we had welcomed back was not Nathan at all. He was Cassius Faison, the identical twin brother no one knew existed, another son tied to the dark legacy of Cesar Faison and Liesl Obrecht. Britt herself had sensed it, that wary look in her eyes whenever he was near, and when she finally spoke the truth out loud, it landed like a thunderclap. She admitted that the man walking around wearing Nathan's life was Cassius, her own brother in a twisted new way, planted by the dangerous Jens Sidwell to infiltrate the police department and settle old scores with Sonny Corinthos. That confession did not just rewrite Nathan's story. It sent ripples through every relationship it touched and set the stage for the even bigger storm that is engulfing Rocco right now. Watching Britt carry that secret must have been agonizing for her. She has walked such a long road from the scheming doctor we first met to the woman who has tried, in her own complicated fashion, to make amends and protect the people she cares about. Learning that her family's poisonous history had produced yet another player in Sidwell's game must have felt like the ground shifting beneath her feet all over again, and yet she did not run from it. Instead, she stayed close to the people who needed her most, and that choice has led directly to the extraordinary bond she has formed with Rocco. The boy who once discovered that Britt played such a vital role in his very beginning has turned to her in his darkest hour, and the two of them have become each other's lifeline in a way that feels both surprising and deeply earned. The trouble for Rocco started when he found himself caught in the crossfire of the larger dangers swirling around Port Charles. A confrontation at the pier, a split-second decision born of fear and the desperate need to protect someone he loved, and suddenly the young man had shot Ross Cullum. The guilt that followed was immediate and crushing. I could see it in every scene, the way his shoulders slumped, the haunted look that replaced his usual bright energy. Rocco is still so young, and carrying the weight of having taken a life, even in defense, has pushed him into a psychological spiral that breaks my heart every time the camera lingers on his face. He began to fear, quite rightly, that his actions would drag his father Dante straight into the line of fire. Dante is a good cop, a devoted father, and the last thing Rocco wanted was to see the man he admires most endangered because of a choice he had made in the heat of the moment. That fear became the driving force behind everything that followed. Instead of turning to his parents and risking their safety even further, Rocco made the heartbreakingly mature decision to confide in Britt. Their conversations in those tense days were some of the most moving material the show has given us in years. Rocco spoke openly about wanting to understand the story of his birth, about forgiving the mistakes of the past, and about his determination not to let the people he loves suffer for what he had done. Britt, for her part, tried at first to push him away, worried about her own failing health and the very real possibility that she might not have much time left without her medication. She did not want the boy to watch her fade or to become another casualty in the dangerous world she had once inhabited. But Rocco would not be dissuaded. He saw the change in her, the genuine care, and he chose to stand by her side just as she had once stood at the beginning of his life. That mutual decision to protect one another, to shoulder the burden together, is what transformed their story into the gripping on-the-run saga that has every longtime viewer counting the hours until the next episode. The actual escape from General Hospital on that Friday in late May was pure soap opera tension at its finest. Britt, ever resourceful, created a diversion by locking Elizabeth in a closet after Liz discovered the fake passport. Then, she and Rocco slipped out into the parking lot, destroyed their phones so no one could track them, and drove away into the unknown. Before they left, Britt made one last call to Sonny, passing along critical information about Sidwell's crimes, proving once again that even while running, she was still trying to shield the larger family she has come to value. Watching them pull out of that lot, I felt the same mix of dread and exhilaration I used to feel during the great escapes of the 80s and 90s. This time, though, it was not two star-crossed lovers or rival mobsters. It was a frightened but determined teenager and the complex woman who had once given him life, now bound by a fierce, protective love that neither of them had expected. The aftermath back in Port Charles has been equally compelling. Dante's panic is palpable every time he appears on screen. He and the man everyone still calls Nathan, though we now know him as Cassius, have had sharp exchanges about how best to protect Rocco. Dante's instincts as a father and a cop are at war with one another, and the presence of Cassius only complicates matters further. How much does Cassius truly care about the boy, or is he still playing the long game for Sidwell? That uncertainty adds another layer of danger to an already volatile situation. Meanwhile, Lulu is beside herself, and the entire canvas feels consumed by the search for the missing pair. It is rare these days for one storyline to dominate so completely, but this one has done exactly that, and I am not complaining. The obsession, both on the show and among us viewers, feels earned. What makes this chapter so special for those of us who have loved the program for a lifetime is the way it honors the past, while blazing new trails. The return of Faison family drama through Cassius brings back echoes of the great villain arcs that define so many classic years. Yet it feels fresh because the consequences are landing on characters we have watched grow up. Rocco's fear for Dante's safety is not just plot mechanics. It is the very real terror of a son who has already lost too much and cannot bear the thought of losing his father too. Britt's willingness to run with him, despite her own fragile health, speaks to the redemptive arc she has traveled and to the surprising grace the writers have allowed her. Every scene between them carries emotional weight because we remember where both characters began. The psychological toll on Rocco is being handled with real sensitivity. We see the guilt, the sleepless nights, the way he second-guesses every choice, and it reminds us that even in a world of spectacular twists, the show still knows how to ground its stories in recognizable human pain. I keep asking myself what will happen next, and the possibilities are both thrilling and terrifying. Will Dante reach them before Sidwell's people do? Will Cassius's true allegiance be tested when he comes face to face with the boy he has claimed to care about? Will Britt's health crisis force a desperate decision somewhere on the road? And how will the larger web of Sidwell's revenge ultimately entangle everyone we love? These questions keep me tuning in day after day, the same way the old Luke and Laura adventures or the great Quartermain family battles once did. The difference now is that the stakes feel even more personal because the characters involved have such deep roots in the show's history. There is something profoundly moving about watching a young person like Rocco choose connection over safety, and about seeing Britt, who once lived only for herself, risk everything to give him that connection. Their flight is not just an adventure. It is a declaration that family can be chosen, and that protection sometimes means walking into the storm together rather than hiding from it. The fact that this choice has become the central obsession of the moment proves how powerfully the writers have tapped into the emotional core that has kept General Hospital alive for more than 60 years. We, longtime viewers, recognize the classic ingredients: the shocking identity reveal, the desperate escape, the father racing against time, the secrets that threaten to destroy the very people they were meant to shield. Yet everything feels new because the characters carrying these beats are ones we have invested decades in loving. I find myself replaying the parking lot scene in my mind, the way Britt handed Rocco his passport with steady hands, even as her own future looked uncertain, the quiet determination in both their faces as they drove away from everything familiar. That image captures everything I love about this show at its best. Ordinary people, or at least people trying to be ordinary, rising to extraordinary circumstances with courage they did not know they possessed. Rocco's fear for Dante has become the emotional engine of the story, and every time Dante appears looking exhausted and worried, I feel that same protective ache. The show is reminding us, once again, that the strongest bonds are often forged in the fires of crisis, and that sometimes the people we least expect become the ones we cannot live without. As the days go by and the search intensifies, I keep thinking about how this storyline is affecting everyone around the edges as well. Elizabeth's brief but memorable entanglement in the escape, Lulu's frantic efforts to understand her son's choice, even the wary interactions between Dante and Cassius all feed into the larger tapestry. Nothing feels wasted. Every thread is pulling tighter, and the anticipation for the next revelation or confrontation is almost unbearable in the best possible way. That is the mark of truly great daytime drama. The ability to make you care so deeply that the fictional troubles of Port Charles become part of your own daily rhythm. For those of us who have been here through marriages and divorces, births and losses, both on screen and off, this current chapter feels like a gift. It gives us the sweeping romance of the escape, the sharp suspense of the identity mystery, and the tender, painful exploration of a boy becoming a man under the worst possible pressure. Britt and Rocco's decision to face the unknown together has turned what could have been a standard runaway plot into something far more meaningful. It is about legacy, about the families we are born into and the families we choose, about the courage it takes to tell the truth even when it shatters the comfortable stories we have told ourselves. Cassius's presence as the hidden brother, the living proof that Faison's shadow still stretches across generations, only deepens the stakes. Britt's quiet admission of his true identity was not just a plot twist. It was the key that unlocked every door now swinging open around them. I do not know how it will all resolve, and that uncertainty is precisely what keeps me coming back. Will Dante's love for his son be enough to bring everyone home safely? Will Cassius ultimately choose blood over the criminal master who created him? Will Britt find a way to survive long enough to see Rocco safely return to the family that has always loved him? These questions hang in the air between episodes, and discussing them with fellow longtime fans feels like the continuation of a conversation that has lasted most of my adult life. The show has always excelled at making us feel part of something larger than ourselves, and this arc is doing that beautifully. What strikes me most is how the writers have balanced the larger-than-life elements with genuine emotional truth. Rocco's psychological struggle is not glossed over. We see the cost in his eyes, in his hesitation, in the way he reaches for Britt as both anchor and fellow traveler. Dante's fear for his son mirrors every parent's worst nightmare, and the fact that he must navigate it while dealing with the betrayal of the man he thought was his friend Nathan adds yet another layer of heartbreak. Britt, caught between her own mortality and her fierce desire to give Rocco the protection and honesty he deserves, has never been more compelling. The escape itself, with its practical details of fake passports and destroyed phones, grounds the melodrama in something real and urgent. We believe these characters would do exactly this because we have watched them become the people who would.